McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse is one of the most controversial lines in action figures. Nevertheless, they've released a deluge of product over the past 5 years, and they're still releasing it now. But is there any reason now to care about McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse? McFarlane Toys debuted their DC Multiverse line back in 2020 to a fairly mixed reception, we'll say. The line debuted at a 7-inch scale, which drew the ire of many 6-inch only collectors. The articulation was really hit and miss. Sometimes it was pretty decent, but very notably there wasn't much of an ab crunch, and there's never really been much of a thigh swivel except on select action figures. And variants were plenty. A lot of action figures had separate head sculpts, a lot of action figures had new paint jobs. Just more reasons to get us to buy the same action figure. That said, we've seen a ton of different sculpts for the DC Multiverse line. We've seen a lot of big risks taken on new lines from McFarlane Toys, including a revival of the Superpowers line and Page Punchers that includes a comic book along with the action figures. They've even tried their hand at Build-A-Figure waves, which didn't go so well, but was interesting. Point being, McFarlane has done a lot with the license over 5 years, way more than it feels like Mattel was even trying to do with it. McFarlane Toys has been releasing a lot of action figures, hot on the tails of the new Superman movie, but none of it really feels like it matters now. DC Multiverse has always had its set of issues, between people complaining about 7-inch scale at mass retail and a lot of Batman action figures. They have gotten better about the Batman action figures, but by the way people talk, you'd never know it. I digress. They are losing the license to Mattel come April 2026, and that leaves us in a strange kind of position, a lame duck period where they're putting out action figures, but the line already had a dubious reputation to begin with, and with everyone realizing that this is about to go back to Mattel after a 5-year hiatus, it's hard to care about anything McFarlane Toys is putting out right now, because it doesn't feel like it's a good investment, quote unquote. It doesn't feel like it's worth talking about. It feels like we're looking at a lot of stuff that's probably gonna be redone by Mattel at some point. I have to believe that Mattel, once they get a hold of the DC license, is probably gonna want to put out their own line of Superman action figures. Between the passing of the license back to Mattel and all the exclusives, all the new variants and gold label releases, and all these little collector's items they're trying to put out to make the action figures seem more valuable and rare than they really are, it's a very frustrating time in DC collectibles. We've seen a much greater increase in characters that aren't Batman over the past couple of years, but along with that, we've also seen the quality take something of a dip, because the sculpting that the line was initially known for has gotten a lot more simplistic. We're seeing a lot of reuse, we're seeing a lot of reliance on certain bodies, like the John Kent Superman body and the Blue Beetle body have both been done to death, to the point where the Blue Beetle body is instantly recognizable every time they make an action figure with it. Credit where credit is due though, McFarlane Toys has at least tried with the license. That's more than you can say Mattel did with it before it got passed to McFarlane back in 2020. Because if you remember the last wave of Mattel's DC Multiverse, it was horrible. People like to wax reminiscent about those action figures, but they sucked. Collectors really have it in their head that Mattel is going to make the Dave Vonner Batman action figures, and they think that's going to be the future of the line. But history has a tendency to predict the future, and if the past is any indication, we're probably going to see something a little bit more akin to the Dick Grayson Batman than anything Dave Vonner's team cooked up. I feel like McFarlane Toys' DC Multiverse is an interesting period in toy history where the unlikeliest of things happened, where Mattel lost the DC license, which, when you say it out loud, seems insane, even more insane that McFarlane Toys would pick it up. But they did the improbable and did get it, and they've had this 5-year stretch doing whatever they can with the license. They've just been throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. They've been doing so much with this license that even if you don't like it, even if you don't love it, you still have to admire that they tried. They put out all new sculpts at an all new scale so rapidly that you couldn't keep up. It was a real good time to be a DC fan, especially if you like Batman, but they made a handful of other characters here and there. They revived the Superpowers line and put out over 50 different action figures. The line is now bigger than it was when Kenner got finished with it. They put out the Page Punchers line. Initially it was a misfire, but now they've course corrected, and they're putting out action figures that come with individual comic books instead of the same comic book for 4 different action figures. They've also introduced retro Batman action figures at 6-inch scale. They've made pretty much every character you could want from the show. I can name on maybe one hand the characters they haven't done. They've done statues, they've done little 3-inch action figures, they've done so much with the license that I've had a good time with it. I don't know that I would say it's perfect. There's a lot of things that personally I would change if I were running things, but it's been a good time. It's been a decent 5 years, and it's more than Mattel ever gave us. I gotta admit, my least favorite thing about this run has gotta be the Build-A-Figures, because the collective build stuff, the individual action figures were cool, but the Build-A-Figures were a total mess. Most of them have been pretty bad, and McFarlane's never really been able to figure out the Build-A-Figure for the most part. Besides that, guys, the exclusives have been a nightmare to deal with. Between the variants and finding where the action figures are at each individual store, it's been hard to collect DC Multiverse. When I have a character that I really want to get, it's almost impossible to get it, it feels like. But the moment I learned that Mattel was getting the license back, I realized it is not worth collecting these anymore, because literally anything that they could do will be done by Mattel in short time. In a little less than a year, they're going to have their own product out there, and what are we going to do with all this extra McFarlane product? The only silver lining I can see for this is if you want to get any McFarlane's action figures right now, nobody cares about them, but sometime in the future, they're probably going to be worth a lot of money because no one really wants any of it. Because of that, I don't think that any of this latest product is really going to be all that good. They're not going to invest all that much time or effort into it because they're just kit bashing things together more or less and doing some repaints. But still might be worth some money if you're so inclined. Let's keep it real though. We are all biding our time until Mattel picks up the license and releases their own action figures. And it makes me sad to say that McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse is cooked. Will Soulmates, do you think McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse is cooked? Let me know down in the comments, guys. Let me know how you feel about these and whether or not you want any of the latest one. Be sure to check out my other videos in the meantime, guys, and I will catch you again soon. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later, everyone. Bye-bye, guys.